Give me coffee in the morning, gotta have the coffee. Wake me up, shake me up, dip me like a lassie. One sip, two sips, and I'm feeling so alive. Coffee in the morning, it's the best way to survive. Woke up in the morning, sleepy eyes yawning. Jumped out of bed, started the day, opened the curtains. Felt the cool breeze, the sun shining on my face. But something was missing, I needed my job to chase. Give me coffee in the morning, give me coffee in the morning, gotta have the coffee. Wake me up, shake me up, dip me like a lassie. One sip, two sips, and I'm feeling so alive. Coffee in the morning, it's the best way to survive.
Good morning. Welcome in, everyone. Grab your seat, grab your coffee, your tea, whatever your morning vice might be, and get on in here. True Crime Butterfly and Forest, welcome in as always. Thanks for being here, guys. Started a little later than usual, but I almost didn't go live. Almost wasn't feeling it, but we're here because I want to stay caught up on what we're doing over here and not get behind. We got a document to read that we haven't gotten to yet. Good morning, Joe. Welcome in. Welcome in. All right, guys, I guess all of you know what's been happening in the news the past few days. I don't intend to cover it here because I cover true crime. I'm avoiding the press conference. I'm avoiding the media because I don't want to hear it. I don't want to talk about it. I got an 18-year-old boy who I've known for years has been targeted by both sides with a ton of propaganda. You know how I know? Because me and my boy have a very open relationship, and he comes to me and tells me things social media is telling boys his age. And it comes from both sides of the fence, and I'm utterly disgusted by it, and I don't give a shit what bullets had inscribed on them. What are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? It's like the last school shooter had engravings all over his little shit. What are we going to do about it? Talk about it for a few days. It'll all die out and go away until the next time. So that's why I'm not talking about it. We're going to talk about true crime because I'm not a political channel and I really don't give a shit. It's a sad, sad time in our country. It's a sad time for our young people. I didn't even know who the guy was that got shot. My child called me and told me who he was and what all he was about, because I got completely turned off and stopped watching anything to do with politics when the Capitol was raided, because I knew right then, we're done. There's no turning back. Neither side really cares. They never do. They'll come out and talk a good game and make you think they care, but they don't. So we're going to leave it at that, and we're going to get on to business. Welcome in, guys. Sorry, salty rant had to happen because I'm over it. I can't stand it. I don't even want to watch the coverage. Hearing that he had shit inscribed on those bullets. I don't give a fuck what he had inscribed on there. It's time for this shit to stop. Right off it, I don't even know. Hell, I didn't even know who the vice president was for the longest time. You know why? I didn't care. It didn't matter to me. Why does it matter, right? People spoke, they got their way. I don't even vote. What was the point? I'm so anti-political these days, I don't even care, because nothing we can say is going to make a change. And I don't care how many people you parade in front of a podium to speak pretty words. They're not going to do anything either. So let's get on with our show, guys. Boy, oh boy, Mr. Koberger, that guy likes to keep things sealed and makes the rest of the world just like, oh my God, he's so amazing. I'm over that shit too. I'm over Twitter saying, why are y'all worrying about his photos? Because I'm going to look at his ugly ass. Because for 3 years, y'all have drug the dead victims all over the YouTube streets and the TikTok streets and the Facebook streets with their pictures, their lives, their boyfriends, their girlfriends, their parents. We've done all that for 3 years, but we can't look at one stupid ass photograph of Brian Koberger. Hell, I'll plaster it all over the fucking scene. Let me pull my video right back up right now and look at his ugly ass mug again and point out weird things we see and just make them all really mad. Like y'all, I don't know what it is about me these past 2 days, but I'm fighting mad. I'm just like, I'm so over so much crap. People coming out with their pretty little words to make it all better. Jesus Christ. Learn some new vocabulary language, people in power. Come out with your little song and dance. It's all going to be okay tomorrow. So, Brian Koberger's attorney entered a document. And they're so crazy. This lady needs to chill out. Ann Taylor, you need to come out and speak your piece publicly once and for all. Set the record straight about your so-called client. So let me share the screen and show you guys what it was. It was one document. Of course, it was granted. Go figure. We don't need to seal everything, but we'll go ahead and grant you this last little sealing here. I'm so sick of Idaho right now, I could puke. In the District Court of the Vortia, whatever. Motion to seal defendant's supplemental response to the court's ordering regarding sealed documents. Comes now Brian Koberger, not the state of Idaho, Brian Koberger, filing through his attorney of record and hereby moves the court for an order to seal defendant's supplemental response to the court's order regarding sealed documents. What Ann's saying is, I don't want the world to know just how shitty we were about to get with this defense. We were willing to go down every avenue and every road to get there. You bring it, ma'am. It's all coming out eventually, and we're going to know exactly what you were up to. But you won't even have the courtesy to come out and give one interview and talk about it, unlike those Delphi attorneys who come out screaming from the gate. Oh, that's because they still think their client's innocent and you don't. So you got the right to change your mind, kind of like Cy, and now you're like, no, I'm not going to come out and talk to y'all ever. Okay, fine. So the defense is asking to keep that sealed, and then of course the judge granted their order. Whatever. It's getting to a point with them people that I'm gonna have to start asking what the fuck y'all hiding over there in Idaho, because it makes no sense to continue this little game we're playing with Brian Koberger. The guy said I did it, so he's fair game. It's not like he's an accusation or a person of interest that we're tearing down on the YouTube streets. No. Quite the opposite of that. And in more bizarre news, I listened to a little bit of this last night, and honestly, I laughed because people are taking it way too freaking. In my opinion, people are going to get so butthurt and take it so personally they can't see past the news of it. Because I'm a little tired of people running with their feelings as well. Because of course no one likes Chad Daybell and his bizarre ass. We gonna stop pretending he didn't rope Lori into some kind of weird religious shit? No. It was all Lori, the mastermind, beautiful woman who only wanted sex and money, and saw Chad as the way to get all that. Oh, really? Well, Chad's writing letters from the prison. And I haven't read them all yet, but I intend to read them for research purposes, to get a little bit into that guy's mind, a little bit. Do I take anything he says for gospel? Hell no. I'm no idiot. But am I going to read it? Yeah. May not read it today, but I'm going to read it. And if I want to talk about it, I'll talk about it. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Chad ain't writing letters. Okay. Because remember, nobody's heard from Chad. And Lori said she hadn't been talking to Chad either. Because apparently Chad's not writing her letters. He's too concerned about letting the world know he still loves Tammy. how sick Tammy really was. So apparently his daughter is running the website and the Twitter account. There is a Twitter account out there now, and I found that Twitter account yesterday and read it. I was like, whoa, holy hell. Welcome to Letters from Chad Daybell. The website features letters, uncensored and unfiltered, written by Chad Daybell from his cell on death row. All contained opinions are his. He receives no financial compensation. And then he goes on to list, or he wrote letters, and his daughter has published them all to this website, guys. Get out of here with that shit. Letter 1, letter 2. I don't even know how many's on this thing. I didn't go through it a lot. Letter 3, letter 4, letter 5 so far. On 5, he said he's eager to explain the events of 2019. Really, we'll get back to you, Chad, because we're going to see what you got to say, you weirdo. Letter 4, this letter begins with a key event in my life that occurred in 1987. Jesus Christ, dude. My previous letter concluded with Tammy and I moving with our children from Utah to Idaho. It's like he's writing his little life story out. You know what I mean? Tell us about the plans you and Lori had. Hello, my friends. This is Chad Daybell writing to you from my cell in Idaho's Max Security Institute. Y'all think Brian Koberger will have a website like this one day soon? Writing his sister or mother letters, and mother's like, you know what? I'm going to go make one of them websites like that dude in Chad Daybell did. It's crazy. Because we don't ever hear Chad talk. And when you do hear Chad talk, you know he's got that monotonal, devilish type voice. And y'all follow me and believe in me. I am the righteous one. Like, dude, get over yourself. Get over yourself. Let me see if I saved it. Hold on, let me look real quick. I may not have saved that. I don't know. Joe, have you read any of those Chad letters yet? Or y'all not going to entertain them because it's Chad? Where did the... let's see. Let me see if I can find what I did with it real quick. Oh, here she is. I thought I had the Twitter site saved right there, but I know what I did with it. Oh, I think, yeah, it's right here. So July of 2025 is when the account started up, guys. I got to grab it like this because it's not going to... Let me copy it this way. Close that. Oh. You've read the first two, Joe? I haven't dove off into them yet. But I know, was it Nate who put that out yesterday at some point? Okay, let me see here. All right, let me share the screen, guys, and I'll show you the Twitter account that popped up. So, letters from Chad, letters to friends, family, posted on behalf of Chad Daybell, aiming for every Monday, Thursday. All opinions are his. DMs are closed. He's received no financial compensation. Now, Nate is reporting this being ran by his daughter, Emma. And then they post letter number 1. And then they have this bookshelf number 5 deal. Then letter number 5. Musical notes. The LDS Church takes that concept to the next level by teaching that we are all part of an eternal family. Y'all just had another religious quack kill her baby the other day, but we're not going to talk about that, right? Because it's not religion that's causing it. It's mental health, or we need sex and money. Nothing to do with religion at all. Y'all, it's uncomfortable to discuss, so pretend it's not about religion. Y'all can go ahead and pretend that all you damn well want to. That lady threw her baby in the lake and said God told her to do it, and the big giant fish swallowed her husband. And if you just go in the bottom of the lake And look, like Jesus said, you will find the big fish that swallowed the husband. Of course, they've come out and said she's just mentally ill. Yes, she was, but what drove her to that point? Y'all's crazy little religious teachings. How she didn't follow the letter of God. She was determined to doomed to hell for their eternal life. Let's get real. I can't. I cannot with the cover-ups anymore, and they're pretending it ain't happening until the next one happens. And then what are we going to do? Make an excuse for that lady too? Oh, she just wanted some more sex. Jesus Christ. I can't. Y'all. And I've also had things on my mind with Letcher County. And I'm really concerned that some things aren't going to get done. And I'll tell you why. Because these girls that are coming forward, they're of age. They are not minors. And a lot of the things that went down, they were consenting adults during the time it was going down, regardless of the circumstances. By law, they were adults, and by their own admission, in some ways, participants, right? So, what they need to find are the girls underage this was happening to when the judge was shot and file some charges. Otherwise, nothing's going to happen. Mickey will take the whatever's coming his way for what he did to the judge, but everything else will stay quiet. Because the only one that's got an active case is Sabrina Atkins. There's an unidentified woman, Jennifer Hill. She's passed away, so she's no longer a part of the civil suit. So I got more questions about this whole case. I just don't, it's not going to play out as the way it should or needs to, I'm afraid, because of the fact that they're going to dismiss a lot of these grown-ass women and blame them. How do you catch all of them if no one's going to investigate it, right? How do you catch them? So Mickey Steins had put in a motion to dismiss that indictment. We didn't go over it yet. We're going to do that today, and so we can stay caught up on what's going on. They also had, the Commonwealth had wanted more evaluations done on him, and the defense has said no. And they've filed a response to that as well that we'll take a look at. Ray Hermosillo said in his crime concession that it was all about sex and money. I know that. I know what they've been saying, Joe. I know. I don't agree. I love Ray too, but it's just, it's too hard to say it was religion and leave it at that, because there was sex and money involved. I'm not stupid, right? But we also know there was a lot of religion involved. But the only thing that bothers me the most is Lori going from my kids were demons and, dark. So we had to do it for that reason, to know now Tylee did it. Lady, make up your damn mind, because right now you're a little hard to figure out. I think you're just blowing smoke up our ass, right? When we all know it was based on your deranged religious bullshit. But everybody wants to downplay that, including investigators, so the mass majority of people also believe that to be true. Kind of like Idaho over here downplaying this quadruple murderer not to be some really horrendous boogeyman when he actually was and is. And literally hundreds of girls were at risk between the two colleges and the 12 miles radius between these two towns. But no, they're going to pretend like it was just a one-off situation. I just can't with the bullshit. Okay. This is a kind of a long brief, guys. All right, brief in support of motion to dismiss the indictment. Comes now the defendant, Sean Mickey Steins, by and through the undersigned counsel pursuant to RCR 812, 814, 816, and 822, and hereby respectfully moves the court to dismiss the indictment in the case due to prosecutorial misconduct at the grand jury proceedings. Specifically, the Commonwealth violated the defendant's constitutional rights and elicited false, misleading testimony, which prejudiced the defendant and tainted the grand jury proceedings. As grounds for same, the defendant states as follows. Y'all remember when Ann Taylor filed one of these? Take it with a grain of salt. It is a defense attorney. The statement by Detective Stamper that the defendant was in his sane mind is false and intentionally misleading. Oh, so we had a guy stating to the grand jury, oh, Mickey was fine? Because y'all have come out and said other words since then. Okay. An indictment returned by a legally constituted and unbiased grand jury, if valid on its face, is enough to call for trial for the charge on the merits. However, dismissal of indictment by a trial court is appropriate if it is established that a violation substantially influenced the grand jury's decision to indict or if there is grave doubt. Do you think the grand jury would have chose not to indict if they showed Mickey had mental problems? I don't think that would have occurred. They still would have indicted and then let the court settle it out with mental evaluations. The guy did it and it's caught on camera. Okay. However, dismissal of an indictment by a trial court is appropriate if it is established that a violation substantially influenced the grand jury's decision to indict or if there was grave doubt that the decision to indict was free from substantial influence of such violations. A court may dismiss an indictment where a prosecutor knowingly or intentionally presents false, misleading, or prejudiced testimony to the grand jury that results in actual prejudice to the defendant. In Commonwealth versus Baker, a detective falsely testified at grand jury proceedings that the defendant struck her children with an aluminum baseball bat. After holding an evidentiary hearing, the trial court dismissed the indictment with prejudice, noting the ethical obligation of prosecutor to observe the independent status of the grand jury and ensure the indictments are returned in a just manner. The court found that the detective's testimony was materially false and affected the grand jury's decision to indict. The court also found the Commonwealth's attorney had knowingly or recklessly elicited false testimony, and that the detective voluntarily testified even though he had no personal knowledge of the facts of the case. Well, hell, that's not good. On appeal, the Court of Appeals concurred that the prosecutor's action deprived the grand jury of its ability to exercise its independent judgment. In the case at bar, the Commonwealth elicited and Detective Clayton Stamper testified to multiple false statements before Letcher County grand jury. The testimony prejudiced Mr. Steins and resulted in an indictment. The case was presented to the grand jury approximately 2 months after the defendant's arrest and preliminary hearing. The Detective and Attorney General's office had ample opportunity to investigate and review evidence, including witness statements, before presentation to the grand jury. Why did they even need a grand jury indictment, right? I mean, you got the guy on camera and you charged him. Why even need it? Why do we need a grand jury in Idaho on what's the Koberger dude? Why? Unlike the testifying officer in Baker, Detective Stamper is the lead investigator in this case. After the Commonwealth concluded its examination, multiple grand jurors asked very specific questions of Detective Stamper, the answers to which clearly influenced the jurors' decision to indict. Had the Commonwealth presented truthful and accurate testimony to the grand jury, the outcome would likely have been different. On November 21, 2024, Kentucky State Police Detective Clayton Stamper testified before Letcher County grand jury seeking a murder indictment against Sean Mickey Steins. Detective Stamper, the lead investigator in the case, is charged with the duty to have knowledge of his agency's investigation. Despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary, Detective Stamper and the Commonwealth put on testimony that the investigation showed defendant was in his sane mind. While Commonwealth, well, if the state's going to say Mickey was sane, then what did Mickey do that for? State? Just bad day? Bad mood? Didn't like what you ordered at lunch? I mean, what the hell? While the Commonwealth argues that the defense is confused about the rules of civil procedure, defendant respectfully disagrees. Defendant does not submit to this court that the Commonwealth needed an expert to testify as to the mental health of the defendant. As stated in the recent status hearing, the defendant believes it is unwise to even allow the witnesses to go down the road. They are free to do so. What? What the Commonwealth cannot do is mislead the grand jury. This is exactly what happened as a result of the reckless provision of information that is objectively untrue. Defendant will outline its basis for this claim but seeks an evidentiary hearing to put out further evidence in support of its position if necessary. First, Detective Stamper was questioned about whether there was any type of hallucination, psychosis, depression, any mental health issues in the documentation from Dr. McDougall, who saw the defendant the day prior to the shooting at the urging of his family and coworkers. Dr. McDougall, where you be, sir? Are you located in Whitesburg? Because I'm going to find out here in a minute. You're on the list to look up now. The AAG then hands Stamper and so the day, wait, hold on. He saw the doctor the day prior to the shooting at the urging of his family and coworkers. So I guess the family has told the defense, about that. The AAG then hands Stamper and asked him to read a snippet of a record from Stein's visit to medical provider the day before the shooting. And they refer to grand jury transcript there. However, the Commonwealth and its witness do not disclose that the same records from the day before the shooting his doctor diagnosed an acute stress reaction. Acute stress reaction? To what? I've never heard of that. And I've been to some mental health doctors before, like for my PTSD and my insomnia and shit. Acute stress reaction. Anxiety? What got him? What was he acutely stressing to? The civil suit, maybe? Another juror asked, so Dr. McDougall said pretty much there's no mental health issues, but was there any major physical health issues that he was struggling with that might have affected his mental health? The witness answers no, not that I'm aware of. A quick Wikipedia glance reveals the following: acute stress reaction, known as ASR, also known as psychological shock, mental shock, or simply shock, as well as acute stress disorder, in a physiological response to a terrifying, traumatic, or surprising experience. So what caused Mickey's acute stress reaction? Because something caused it. It wasn't a nightmare. What happened in the 3 days prior in the civil suit deposition? And 2 days later, he's seeing a doctor who just says he's got this acute stress reaction. And the very next day, he shoots the judge. What caused this acute stress reaction? Because according to this definition, there'd be a trigger. The reactions may include, but are not limited to, intrusive thoughts. Come, you talking about? They say that with every mental illness: intrusive thoughts or disassociation, and reactivity symptoms such as avoidance or hyperarousal. It may be exhibited for days or weeks after the traumatic event. I've suffered traumatic events in my life. What the hell, Mickey? If the you were plain old mad. If the condition is not correctly addressed, it may develop into post-traumatic stress disorder. Well, I've got PTSD and I've never had the urge to go off anybody. Not, well, not actively. Maybe a thought in my head a time or two, but I would never act upon it. Jesus. The grand jury asked for medical records. A snippet was read to them. They were told there was nothing of note in them. The diagnosis from the visit makes it evident that this is untrue. As in Baker, the witness and prosecutor are charged with knowledge gained in the investigation. Second, the Commonwealth has represented that the first unrecorded meeting was for the purpose of obtaining grand jury subpoenas for Appalachian Regional Hospital and Letcher County jail records. The Commonwealth has represented that the first unrecorded meeting was for the purpose of obtaining grand jury subpoenas. You can't record that? However, the Commonwealth's witness failed to note the mental health evaluations that were initiated by the government viz the jail. What? These examinations were conducted at Kentucky River Community Care on September 20th of 2024, the 23rd, and the 24th. Those evaluations included, so they've already done some evaluations, right? So the prosecution wanted more, and the defense is like, no, you've done them. I've got their response as well. The evaluations included observations of active psychosis. He had been given Risperdal and Seroquel. Oh boy, we can't give enough Americans that Seroquel and tell them it's going to work and tell them they're going to be fine. Now, let's ignore all the lawsuits involved with Seroquel too. Let's just keep giving it out willy-nilly. All the jails, all the prisons, y'all come in, you got a little problem, here's your Seroquel. Take your antipsychotic self to bed and zone the fuck out for several hours. That's what that medication does for people. Unless you're really, really antipsychotic, then that medicine's not going to do you any good. Or psychotic, I should say. It's going to mess you up if you don't have the conditions it's designed to treat. I think the mental health needs an entire overhaul in this country. So easy to say, well, it's all mental health, mental health, mental health, mental health. They need to go get help. We need help. Why? What, they going to stick us on some Seroquel and say there's no real good therapies you can do, just go take this pill and you'll be fine? No. It needs to be reevaluated. Them fancy doctors out in California, oh, y'all got all these things wrong with y'all. Hell, every damn one of y'all's got the autism. Everybody does. Now y'all feel bad for one another and have empathy now, okay? Excuse each other's behaviors because y'all got the autism. This is the same doctor referenced in the grand jury transcript. The follow-up notes from the mental health evaluator indicate that his condition improved after administration of the medications Risperdal and Seroquel. The Commonwealth had conditions improve. What, after 2 days of it? The Commonwealth has stated that one of the purposes of the unrecorded grand jury hearing was to get subpoenas for mental health records and jail records. In fact, the only evidence given from the first grand jury meeting was a note that says the grand jury sought all medical records, including but not limited to mental health records and pharmacy records for Sean Steins from June 19th, 2024 to present. We also request any and all records from Leslie County Detention Center, because when he was taken from Letcher County after the shooting, he was taken over to Leslie County Detention Center there for housing. It appears that the mental health evaluation from KRCC on 9/23 and 9/24 fall within the requested documents. These two evaluations were done while Steins was at Leslie County Detention Center. Still yet, the discovery provided detailing the exhibits to the grand jury curiously did not include records from the jail. I don't know if it's enough to dismiss the indictment. I feel like it's more of a trial argument. My client's really mentally ill or whatever, especially if you've got a lot of documentation. It's really hard to get an indictment thrown out unless they can prove misconduct at the grand jury. We all know Ann Taylor tried like hell to get her indictment thrown out for Koberger and did not succeed. The Commonwealth then allowed their witness to state that the investigation did not reveal any evidence of a mental health issued despite McDougal noting an acute stress. Now, that's a problem. Seriously, if the prosecution didn't let the grand jury know all of it, I think they still would have indicted, though. It's on fucking tape. We deal with the whys later. Right now, you're charged, right? Any pre existing conditions will be heard at mitigation, sir. And the investigation did not reveal any evidence of a mental health issue, despite McDougal's note of the acute stress reaction the day prior to the shooting, and mental health providers working in the jail prescribing active psychosis and the jail prescribing Seroquel and Risperdal. The failure to comply, or at best selectively comply, with the grand jury's request for the subpoenas. Now, if the grand jury requested all of that and didn't get it, that is a problem. You don't need to be keeping stuff from the grand jury. How can they make a logical, critical thinking decision without all of the information? But then again, we hear, they'll indict a ham sandwich. It doesn't take much. You sneeze the wrong way, you're indicted. So maybe they ought to change the way these grand juries operate. I don't know what the answer is, but I'm a little over grand juries. The failure to comply, or at best, if you can't cut it during a preliminary hearing, do you even got a case? Why do you need a grand jury to indict? Are you scared that at the preliminary hearing the judge will agree with the defense there's no case here? Like, it made no sense for Idaho to go off and pull that indictment shit when they literally had a preliminary hearing scheduled. I think y'all are hiding behind your grand juries. Such a recklessly false statement falls well within the Baker describes as misconduct at the grand jury stage. The grand jury requested all mental health records from June 19, 2024 through the present. They also requested all the files from Leslie County Jail. And remember, he got pepper sprayed over at Leslie County because he was being all, some kind of way over there. And they're like, calm down, Mickey, we're spraying you. The jail referred Mr. Steins for mental health evaluations. The jail administered the psychological medications in conjunction with the evaluations. The Commonwealth's failure to prove or mention these records is in direct violation of the request by grand jury, and thus in this direct violation of the Baker mandate that prosecutors maintain the independence of grand jury investigation. Guys, I got to go check something really quick. I'll be right back. Thank you for your patience, guys. I also had to grab a cup of coffee while I was up. I had to let the dog in. My son came home, or I forgot he was going to a field trip with the grandson earlier. And then he came home a little while ago and surprised me. Like, there's all of a sudden there was a man in my house talking. And I'm like, what in the world? And my son, I was like, dude, where'd you come from? I forgot that he wasn't going to work today. Anyway, he let the dog out before he left a minute ago and didn't let her back in. All right. Let's get back to our document now. Again, thanks for coming in, everybody. I appreciate y'all being here with us. If y'all don't mind, give the thumbs up a little tap there. Yes, Forrest, thank you for reminding everybody. We appreciate that. Okay, the Commonwealth has the Commonwealth was not free to cherry pick what items the grand jury got to hear about, given the specific requests. If I hear that word cherry pick one more time or that phrase, I swear I might just, oh, God, I don't even know. Both of the requests for mental health it's probably a good thing that it's Friday and I'll be off for like 2 days to get my shit together because I'm like, ugh, I'm ready to pounce on somebody. I don't even know why. Like, what in the world's happened to me? Both of the requests for mental health records and jail records would encompass these detention evaluations. Thus, failure to produce them is alone is misleading. The compound To compound this with allowing the detective to state that there was no evidence of a mental health condition is misconduct. I wonder what I don't know a lot about this judge they have over there. I've only seen him like once or twice because they got that weird no camera shit going on again. And so I don't know how he rules on things. You know what I mean? Like, we get to watch, like in Idaho, we always get to see the hearings, so we get to know the judge a little bit. But here we don't know. I don't know anything about this judge. I don't even remember what his name was. Again, defendant concedes that there is no requirement to put on this evidence absent the grand jury's request. However, there were two requests that were blatantly ignored and specific questions that were answered falsely. The detective and prosecutor in Baker were obviously underprepared for the grand jury, and both were relying on work done by others. However, the recklessly misleading information prejudiced the defendant in Baker, and the facts in the case sub judice are significant more prejudicial. Additionally, KSP, under direction of lead investigator Stamper, conducted multiple interviews. Practically all interviews call into question the defendant's mental health status in the week preceding the shooting. And I imagine that it does. How can the state walk in there and tell a grand jury this man was fine when they know he wasn't? Apparently, everybody around town knew Mickey wasn't right now. Nobody cared to ask why. Something bothering you, Mickey? Got something on your mind, buddy? Come have a beer and let's talk about it. On September 20th, 2024, KSP interviewed attorney Daniel Dotson. Oh boy, I think Hillbilly Crime's got a lot to say about him. Dotson said the defendant never threatened him or Judge Mullins, but that he was so concerned about Mickey's demeanor, he contacted the Kentucky Bar Association to determine what action could be taken. So we got him extremely concerned about Mickey, and then y'all telling grand jury Mickey's fine? Dotson also told the KSP that he spoke to Kevin Mullins and told him that Mickey was losing it and couldn't take this kind of pressure, in reference to the civil suit involving some crack whore wanting money. Wow. That pisses me off. Just another crackhead looking for money. The girl you bought the crack for and gave to, sir? Maybe not you, but the judge, maybe? Wow. The civil suit involving some crack whore wanting money. Dotson goes on to tell KSP that he spent hours researching it and Mickey had paranoid schizophrenia. Dotson said that Mickey was criminally insane. How does he know that? He the doctor? Dotson says that Whitesburg Police Chief Tyrone Fields told Dotson that on Wednesday night, the night prior to the shooting, that Mickey had called him, and when he got off the phone, he told his wife, "That son of a bitch has lost his mind." Wow. This was based upon the paranoid thoughts defendant had disclosed. Paranoid thoughts like, oh, they're going to come and kidnap my wife and daughter if I don't play along? If I don't do like Ben Fields and take the whole rap? and go do some time in the jail? Y'all gonna come for my wife and daughter? Was Mickey feeling closed in? Exactly, Forrest. That choice of words is a lot. It speaks volumes, doesn't it? They didn't even give her the courtesy to say her name. Some crack whore. What the fuck? I probably need to go to the store and get me some gummies today because I am out. And I'm not going to be fine until I go get me some. I got to calm myself down. That son of a bitch has lost his mind. Wow. That was based upon the paranoid thoughts the defendant disclosed. Chief Fields was interviewed by KSP directly. Hill stated defendant's demeanor had changed markedly, and that there was chatter that Mickey was unwell or off his rocker. Nobody cared that Mickey was off the rocker. He states that he was looking for Mickey to discuss his mental health and refer him to the help that is available. Christine Bowling, LCSO staff, told the KSP that the staff had stated they were concerned about Mickey due to his very strange behavior. Specifically, the day prior to the shooting, the sheriff told her that Daniel Dotson had told him. Now, this is the guy that just got through calling that girl a crack whore and saying Mickey's, criminally insane. The sheriff told her that Daniel Dotson had told him to give him money and kill himself, or they were going to kill Caroline and Lila, the wife and daughter. Mr. Dotson, did you say that? Or is that more of Mickey being criminally insane that you done put out there? Let me go put this out there to the world and do some damage control. Sir, you can't call Mickey criminally insane and then go over here and tell him to go kill himself and bring me some money. What was he supposed to give him money for? Lordy. Well, if they knew he was acting this way, the point is the grand jury this is all being kept from the grand jury. So obviously Mickey had a lot of problems leading up to the shooting and people knew about it. Now they're going to use it against him or not. I don't freaking know what they're going to do, but people knew. But the grand jury was not being told. Bowling states that the sheriff would they have brought back like a lesser charge? Would they have said, you know what, this might be manslaughter? I don't know what they would have done giving the information if they had had it all, I just don't know how they would have ended up ruling on it. Bowling states that the sheriff insisted on going to his home to check on his family and made her get his bulletproof vest on and have someone call and check on Lila. This is confirmed by ring footage provided in reciprocal discovery. Bowling states that she and another staff took the sheriff to Dr. McDougal based on the strange behavior. Bowling stated that during the food delivery he attended with Michael Clark. Now, Michael Clark's the preacher man, and Mickey and Michael were out delivering Meals on Wheels several hours before the shooting. Bowling stated that during the food delivery he attended with Michael Clark, the recipients were acting strangely and were wanting him to take the food up on a hill, and the recipients wanted to take them up on a hill on a what? I'm not understanding. Bowling stated that during the food delivery he attended with Michael Clark, the recipients were acting strangely. The recipients of the food, and were wanting him to take the food up on a hill, and the recipients wanted to take them up on a hill on a side-by-side. What in the world? This corroborates what Clark told KSP. That's weird. What's this talk about going up on a hill for? I don't get that part. The KSP detective testified that a witness who was with Steins immediately prior to the incident did not notice anything peculiar. Stamper testified that Steins was with Michael Watts making a food delivery immediately prior to the incident. This statement in and of itself was false, As interviews show, Steins delivered the food with Michael Clark, not Michael Watts. Well, make up y'all's darn mind. In an interview with KSP, Clark immediately following the incident, Clark described being very close with Mickey Steins. Yeah, I got a whole video on him talking about it the very next day after it happened, Mr. Preacher Man. The Lord will save us all. All we got to do is pray. That's all we got to do. Strange how it works for some and not for others. What did I do not to deserve my prayer answered? Let's see, I'm gonna get on a tangent here. I got to stop. In an interview with KSP, Clark. Okay, so they done lied. Clark described being very close with Steins and noticing that Steins was off in distance and like something was bothering him and that his mind was somewhere else. LaShawna Frazier, staff of LCSO, told KSP that she had asked McDougal to move up the sheriff's upcoming doctor appointment because she was very worried about him. She went with Bowling and the sheriff's family to check defendant into the doctor. Frazier stated, en route to the doctor, the sheriff stopped by his wife's office to check on her. Why are all these other women taking Mickey to the doctor and not his damn wife? Frazier stated that sheriff was encouraged to go to the doctor because he had some kind of psychosis going on. In response, the KSP echoed back stress. Frazier responds anxiety. I think between the weight loss, the non-sleep, I think his anxiety was completely off the charts. I feel like he was in a psychosis. So he must have lost a bunch of weight too. Well, stress will do that to you. Sherry Steins, defendant's aunt, told KSP Detective Anthony Trotter that Mickey was concerned that someone was on the back street near where he lived watching his house. He stated he didn't act like himself, she stated. Now, allegedly, the person he called from the desk before he shot the judge and he FaceTimed with him on the phone, that was his aunt. Sherry told Trotter that the sheriff wanted his aunt to check on his family because he observed someone walking on the street. She stated that he seemed really freaked out, that he could not sleep. In a follow-up call with Trotter, Sherry Steins called and informed Trotter that Mickey had called her on the day of the shooting and asked about where his grandmother, nicknamed Bones, was that day. Bones had been dead for 3 years at the time of the call. So when Mickey called the aunt from the judge's chambers, he asked where Grandma Bones was, and Grandma's been dead for 3 years? Mickey was in some psychosis, wasn't he? KSP body camera video from multiple officers on scene very clearly shows Mr. Stein's paranoid and erratic behavior. There are multiple other witnesses who state similar observations and opinions. The KSP investigation is Detective Stamper's investigation. Given the overwhelming evidence of Mr. Stein's mental health or mental state prior to and immediately following the shooting, Detective Stamper had no clear basis for testifying that Steins was in his sane mind. So none of the stuff we're hearing about what the judge and all the other guys in town, pretend like we have heard none of that. Okay, don't hear what we've heard, but just pretend. Would they say Mickey was just a guy who lost his shit and killed the judge for no reason? Mickey knew stuff. However, the Commonwealth is not permitted to mislead or provide clearly false testimony when asked by the grand jury. Defendant seeks to unseal his mental health evaluation, in part without specifically stating the contents, because the report shows that the investigation that was relied upon by the examiner is materially relevant to show the falsity of the testimony, that nothing in the investigation showed defendant was not in his sane mind. Simply stated, the grand jury was very focused on the mental health of Mickey Steins, so much so that unrecorded session was convened for only that purpose, to gather medical records related to his mental health. The prosecutor is not a gatekeeper. The gay Nobody's a gatekeeper, but this country thinks we all need to be the gatekeepers. We got to be super sensitive and empathetic, and we can't show anything gory on TV. We can't even talk about the horrendous shit going on in our country, like a poor little white girl getting stabbed to death on a train by a black man. We can't talk about that either. Well, y'all can pretend we live in a perfect little world when I damn well know better. Not y'all, but y'all know what I mean. And a bunch of word salad throwed up in documents constantly. Can we just get to the damn point, the meat and potatoes of it all? This makes the distinction between a wooden stick and an aluminum bat look trivial in comparison. The statement that the investigation did not reveal anything that would suggest defendant was not in his sane mind is not just a difference in opinion, it's a fault. It is false. Now remember, they're going with the extreme emotional disturbance defense for Mickey Steins. But what caused his extreme emotional disturbance? Just plain old mental health, untreated for years? How long had Mickey had these issues? That's important to know. This makes a distinction between a wooden stick and the bat. Okay. Bluntly, there is not anything in the investigation that suggests otherwise, and KSP agrees in the interviews. So, regardless of what the investigation means to an expert, the question was whether anything in the investigation showed Steins was not in his sane mind. And the true answer is there are mountains of such evidence. It was up to the grand jury to decide what they would do with those mountains. The Commonwealth didn't have to go into mental health and at the charging juncture, but when the grand jury decided on their own that they wanted to investigate this arena, the Commonwealth is not free to mislead or lie to them. Statement by Detective Stamper that Ben Field's civil case was not related in any way. Really? Is false and intentionally misleading and was prejudicial to the defendant. During the proceedings, grand juror asked about whether Judge Kevin Mullins had any relation to that case in any way. The prosecutor interjected and asked, "To your knowledge, was Judge Mullins involved?" To which Stampler said, "To my knowledge, no involvement." Involvement in what? First and most obviously, the KSP investigation made it very clear that the events that were subject of the civil matter, i.e., Ben Field's improper sexual relations with court participants, occurred in Judge Mullins' chambers. Now, that Tabiz TV I was telling you guys about the other day when we had Taya on, he's got a full interview over there of Ben Fields, and I have it. We're probably not going to have time to watch it today, but we're going to take a look at that. And hats off to him for getting that and putting it out there and sharing that video, because it's interesting to hear Ben Fields talk about what was going on over there in that interview. So Ben Fields' improper sexual relationships with the court, and remember, he was the one that was getting it on with the women in exchange for sex for the ankle monitor program, and he explains all of that in the interview. It's crazy. Second, a KSP interviewed attorney Ann Mullins' close friend Daniel Dotson. The KSP interview with Dotson reveals that Mullins had questioned Dotson about his legal involvement in the Fields case. Oh, okay, and why they had been to Prestonsburg. In the same interview, Dotson ponders if Mullins was implying information in the civil suit and suggests that KSP talked to Ned Pillersdorf or Sabrina Atkins, who filed the civil suit. So KSP Dotson ponders if Mullins was supplying information in the civil suit and suggests that KSP talked to Ned Pillersdorf to determine if Mullins was supplying information because Mullins thought Mickey was trying to get him. So Mullins thinks Mickey's trying to get him, so now he's going to feed information to the civil suit investigation? Excuse me, Judge? What are you doing, sir? Dotson goes on to note that Mickey's insurance appointed Jeffrey Jonathan Shaw told him that one of the girls had a video of Kevin with someone bent over a desk. Mickey's insurance. Is that supposed to be that? Is that the right word to put there? Dotson goes on to note that Mickey's insurance appointed attorney Jonathan Shaw. Insurance appointed attorney. Okay, I got it now. Attorney Jonathan Shaw told him that one of the girls had a video of Kevin with. Now, there. So, according to Sabrina Atkins, who filed the civil suit, she was shown videos of the judge having relations. So, I don't know if that's what they're referring to right there. But he had somebody bent over the desk. Who's recording it? Oh my God, the judge? Did he set up his phone like to. What? I wonder if that really exists. Who. I don't even know where Sabrina. She claims that Ben Fields showed her the video. From what I can remember, I have to go back and look at her testimony again, but I think that's what she said. The KSP asked Dotson if, based on upon his experience and knowledge, that his Mickey's focus on Kevin was singular, related to this whatever imagined civil suit, criminal penalties, whatever he had in his mind. Dotson responded, "Real civil." What kind of word salad are they doing today? Third, the Commonwealth was represented by Attorney General during the recorded portion of the grand jury hearing. In 2022, Attorney General's investigators recorded an interview with Sabrina Atkins in relation to the case. She told the AG that she witnessed a tape of Mullins having sex with a woman in his chambers. She stated she knew Mullins and that his face was clear on the tape. So why didn't Ben Fields throw the judge under the bus if he's the one that possessed said tape? Did he record it himself? This raises the question as to why the AG prosecutor rephrased the actual question of the grand juror as opposed to intervening in his sane mind portion. At the base level, she is charged with constructive knowledge of the Fields case and the interview of Atkins that explicitly connected Mullins to the sex chamber events. Sex chamber. Wow. The choice to not disclose this evidence when questioned by the grand jurors is highly suspicious. Now, if the grand jurors had, what if they'd asked to see the video? And they're like, oh, wait a minute. What would they have, how would they have ruled seeing that or even knowing it? You know what I mean? Did they have any other options other than to return murder? I wonder. Again, in comparison to the aluminum bat case, this misleading testimony in this grand jury is exceptionally more prejudicial. The purpose of the grand jury requires that it remain free with constitutional and statutory limitations to operate independently of either prosecuting attorney or the judge. An abuse of the grand jury process poses an enormous risk to defendants. In theory, a trial provides a defendant with a full opportunity to contest charges against him or her. In practice, the issuance of indictment oftentimes has a devastating personal and professional impact that a trial acquittal can never undo. The ex parte character of a grand jury proceeding makes it particularly important for the government to remember that the interest in a criminal prosecution is not that it shall win the case, but that the justice shall be done. The grand jury is not solely an investigative body. It also preserves as a protector of citizens against arbitrary and oppressive governmental actions. Ain't nobody, we are not protected against our own government. Take a look around. Wow. Come at me again with some more lies, please. Unrestrained misconduct in grand jury proceedings is consistent with administration of justice in the courts and should be should be redressed in appropriate cases by the dismissal of indictments obtained by improper methods. The allegations of governmental misconduct in this case make it even more vital that the Commonwealth presents accurate responses to the grand jurors' questions. And let me just say one more thing. Everybody and their brother outside of what happened to the gentleman that was shot. I don't even know his name. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude or insensitive, but I cannot. Charlie, I don't know. I didn't even know who he was when it happened. So it is what it is. Everybody got all obsessed with them damn Epstein shit too. Guess what, people? I don't trust one thing those Epstein, whatever that shit is, says. I don't want to read it. I don't want to know about it. Nothing will be done about it, and they've had plenty of time to doctor any documents they want to doctor. So y'all go ahead and think all that's real if y'all want. I don't want nothing to do with it. It's sickening. The allegations of government misconduct in this case make it even more vital that the Commonwealth presents accurate responses to the grand jurors' questions. Constitutionally, this body is to operate independently, and they sought answers to their questions about the mental health of the defendant and whether the Fields case was in any way related to the shooting. Nearly half of the 25-minute hearing centered on these issues. The defendant is entitled to a dismissal of the indictment based on the evidence provided from the Commonwealth's investigation as briefly stated herein. Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. Tell me lies. Oh, Christine McVie, one of the most underrated female singers of all times. I've always loved you, girl, and you know it. Fleetwood Mac's my jams. I love me some Christine McVie, by the way, in case y'all didn't know. Of course, Stevie the Queen, you can't forget her, but don't ever. Christine went way underestimated for too many years. Nearly half the 25-minute hearing centered on these issues. The defendant is entitled to a dismissal of the indictment based upon the evidence provided from the Commonwealth's investigation as briefly stated herein. The court would then decide whether the violations result in dismissal with prejudice or whether the remedy is to grant dismissal without prejudice to the Commonwealth. Lordy, lordy. Alternatively, a ruling based on the motions, the defendant seeks an evidentiary hearing on these issues. Now, the judge hasn't ruled yet on a hearing. Will he? I don't know. Defendant, I gotta get some updates. I have to go rely on my friend MB Inc. to get some of these latest documents because they're hard to get. I know Elizabeth had a hard time getting a couple of them, but he's my go-to right now. He's the one that sent me this. He sent this to me, and he's got some more documents that have come out since then that I need to get and get pulled up for us so we can make sure we're staying on top of what's been going down here. Now, we had the Crystal Rogers trial, 2 trials back to back recently in her case, and none of it was televised in Kentucky. So I don't know if they're going to allow cameras in the courtroom for Mickey's trial if we get there or not. I'm a little over courts not allowing a camera in the courtroom. It's gotten to the point where if they don't allow a camera in a hearing or a trial, I want nothing to do with it. That's going to be my stance probably moving forward. Kind of like Barry Morphew over there. Take your ass on back down. Go sit down, sir. Whoever you are, Lee Morphew, Barry Morphew, how many aliases you got right now, dude? How many? All that property you're transferring to your daughters. I've seen all of it. Actually. But you don't want us to come to court and look at you or your pretty daughters. I think under the United States Constitution, we have the right to do that, and I'm sick of courts saying we don't. Defendant renews its motions regarding the unrecorded, unsworn testimony and incorporates its previous motion by reference. Defendant reiterates his position set forth on the motion to dismiss and incorporates the same by reference. Defendant will simply reiterate the importance of recording the testimony as set forth under criminal rules. Further, outside of legal advice, the deliberations information given orally to the grand jury is testimonial, whether sworn or unsworn, and regardless of who is providing that information. It is evident that there was a discussion of the case, else there was no basis for the grand jury's request. That's true. Why would they even think to ask it unless something was mentioned, right? Finally, defendant notes again that it is evident from the note defendant has not been provided an actual subpoena to any entity other than Appalachian Regional Hospital. What information was sought and was not provided? Wherever based on foregoing, defendant asks the indictment in this action be dismissed with prejudice. Alternatively, defendant asks this court for an evidentiary hearing on the matters presented above. This is we, the Letcher County Grand Jury, hereby request all medical records, including but not limited to mental health records and pharmacy records for Steins, and then it gives the dates. We also request any and all records from Leslie County Detention Center. And they sign and dated by I'm assuming, the foreperson of the grand jury. Steins Grand Jury. Jackie and I appeared before the grand jury for the sole purpose of obtaining the grand jury subpoenas for the Appalachian Regional Health Care records and Leslie County Detention Center records. That appearance is what the comment would have been referencing. Dr. Ramsey Dahlem. This is an email, and Jeremy Bartley is the attorney for Steins. And then that's redacted. Jail triage clinical follow-up risk assessment for Mickey Steins. Continues to express suicidal intent or threats. They checked no. Continues to exhibit suicidal behavior, i.e. headbanging, self-injury, no. Charge-related risk is high, charges increase or sentence, i.e. charge is life-altering, embarrassing, high-profile, or violent comments. And they checked yes. Embarrassing? Next court date and expected outcomes, date unknown. Feels hopeless, helpless, or trapped. They're like, yes. Feels like a burden or abandoned by his family or friends. They're like, yes. Lack of suicide protective factors. Low external protective factors not connected to the family. They check yes. Friends, significant others, jail staff. Low internal protective factors like a lack of faith, belief system, coping skills. They check yes. Who's checking all this off? A random receptionist or a medically qualified person? My observance is he's not headbanging right now. Still under the influence of or withdrawing from substance. There is a no. Lack of global directed behaviors. Self-care has deteriorated. Not eating, bathing, or taking meds. And according to the nurse, he still refuses some medications, and they put yes. No evidence of external involvement, not taking recreation, asking for commissary, receiving visitors and calls, lacks goal directed. What was the date on this? Nine 23/24. Whoa. Hang on. Okay. Kentucky Jail Mental Risk Crisis Network follow-up form. Summarize the clinical interview. The yes answers, relevant history and rational for recommended risk level. Include directions for the jail. Okay. Upon evaluation of Mr. Steins, it appears he is still in an active state of psychosis. He appears disoriented and is only aware of things jail staff tell him. He has no recollection of the recent past. So, what was Mickey able to tell his attorneys? He does report that he has some paranoia because he is unsure where he is, and it is told he is told he is incarcerated. He does not appear to understand his charge and is unaware of his surroundings. He denies any suicidal or homicidal ideations. He does present to be responding to internal stimuli during the evaluation. Stein should continue at high risk level. He has episodes of combativeness which required pepper spray. Do we have that on camera where he was combative? Do we? Body cam somewhere? It is recommended that he be evaluated again within the next 24 hours because we can't see the videos of them doping up Rick Allen, if it was voluntary or not. No, we can't see that. Mr. Steins has recently agreed to take Risperdal 1 milligram 2 times daily. This began this morning. Will evaluate effectiveness and symptoms when retriaged. They didn't give him the Seroquel notice, they just give him the Risperdal. He's like, screw y'all's stupid pill with the starts with an S. That's crazy stuff right there, even for my psychotic ass. Grand jury testimony, Sean Steins. All right, Detective Joe, I might need you up here and tag team this with me, and we can play voices again like we did before. Joe, Joe played his role pretty good, I have to say. All right, Detective Stamper, if you could please raise your right hand and take the oath to the grand jury. Detective Clayton Stamper is sworn in, clerk. Please state your name and occupation for the grand jury. He says, Clayton Stamper, I'm a detective with the Kentucky State Police. And the clerk says, thank you very much. The prosecutor says, and Detective Stamper, how long have you been employed with KSP? 24 and a half years, he answers. And Detective Stamper, we are here today on a proposed indictment charging Sean Steins with 1 count of murder. Please let the grand jury know about the investigation that led to this court. He says, okay. On Thursday, September 19th, around 3 p.m., my sergeant, Joel Abner, notified me I was in Hazard County with the Duke boys. I was in Hazard at the time. Told me to head towards the Letcher County Courthouse. We know what Bo and Luke Duke thought about Kentucky. It had been reported to the judge. It had been reported that Judge Kevin Mullins had been shot in the courthouse. So me, along with numerous other detectives, headed that way. While I was en route to the courthouse from Hazard, I learned that apparently Judge Mullins was deceased because they had asked a coroner to come to the scene. I also learned that there was one male subject in custody that had allegedly done the shooting. By the time I arrived at the courthouse, numerous other detectives arrived about the same time I did. It was at that time that I realized that the person that was actually in custody was Sheriff Mickey Steins. Sean Mickey Steins, and he was seated in the hallway just inside the front doors of the courthouse. So at the time, myself and other detectives were divided up tasks to do, which included conducting interviews, collecting evidence at the scene. I personally, the first thing I'd done, me and a few other detectives, tried to talk to Sheriff Steins to see if he was going to give us a statement or whatever about what happened. He refused to do so. I conducted a few more interviews, and then I was made aware of some surveillance footage that was in the courthouse. Like the camera they put in there after all the little sexcapades was happening. We need a camera now. And there was actually a camera that was in Judge Mullins' chambers. And I was able to view this footage. And the footage shows Sheriff Steins come in, he comes into the judges, and then the question is, and Detective Stamper, before we get into the details of that footage, he says, okay, the question, I know you said that you and some of the other officers were all en route to the courthouse. He replies, yes. And the question is, were you the first officer on scene? And he says, no, I was not. Are you aware of who the first officers were? He replies, well, other than, you mean KSP or general? And the question is, law enforcement generally. Well, there was Officer Hunsucker. What a name. Clemens and Whitesburg PD. So the city police department of Whitesburg was there, as well as some Letcher County deputies. There were several. I wonder how big their Whitesburg PD is. Probably super tiny, with probably like 2 cops. Because I don't imagine the city limits being too big. I know in our tiny towns, the city limits are tiny, and you may have 3 cops, but the county got 50, right? Or however many. My county's got way more than 50 county cops, but they just love the county cops around here, the sheriff's departments. In Florida sheriff's departments, they don't play. But them city police departments, they're a whole different breed. I don't trust them. I don't know if they're real cops or not. I don't that's just a local issue. I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't have interjected that thought out there into the YouTube verse, but may have come out wrong. But that's how I roll. Shit just comes out wrong sometimes. He says there was Officer Hunsucker, Clemens, and all these people. There were several Letcher County deputy sheriffs who were at the sheriff's office who responded just by simply walking over from their office to the courthouse. Okay, and so geographically, were those law enforcement personnel, were they just closer to the courthouse? He says, yes, they were closer. And then the question is, okay, and did you, as part of your investigation, I know you said officers kind of divided up duties, and he says, yes, as part of that investigation, and he says they did. The question now is, did officers with Kentucky State Police speak with the Clemens, Hunsucker, and other officers who were first on the scene? He says they did. The question now is, okay, and what did they report? The answer, okay, Hunsucker and Clemens with the Whitesburg PD reported that they had, and there's also a deputy Borman, who I personally interviewed him. He's one of the ones that walked from the sheriff's office to the courthouse. He said he passed Sheriff Steins walking on the street away from the courthouse. Now remember, after the murder happened, Mickey walks right out the front door of the courthouse. There's video of it. He walks down the sidewalk. He walks around behind the courthouse for a minute. And he comes walking back, and cops are everywhere. People running around. No one has apprehended Mickey at that point. He's just standing there like, yep, here I am. He said he passed Sheriff Steins walking on the street away from the courthouse, and that the sheriff had just like a blank look on his face, and Borman tried to get information about what was going on. He said the sheriff didn't say anything, so he continued on into the courthouse. Officers Hunsucker and Clemens, and I guess you would expect the sheriff to be all up on it, right? And giving you information. Hey, we got to do this, boys. Let's do that. But they didn't realize at that time he had done it. Officer Hunsucker and Clemens both stated they had just entered the courthouse. And what I want to know also, the people that were in that office when Mickey walked in the door and, hey, everybody go out, and he talked to the judge, none of them heard the gunshots. Nobody chased Mickey down out of the building. Nobody comes walking out of the courthouse behind Mickey. Or they all just ran to the judge to try to save him, and nobody cared where Mickey went. They all knew Mickey was the one in there. So I got questions about that. Like, what the hell are y'all doing in this weird town? Basically formulating a plan to locate a shooter. At that point, Sheriff Steins walked in right behind them, and he said basically words to the effect of, there's nobody else, it was me. He takes his pistol out and he lays it on a table. That's just to the right of the doorway, just inside the courthouse. So Mickey absolutely was aware of what he just did. He made a statement like, they're trying to kidnap my wife and kid, or something like that. to one of the officers. So they took him into custody. At that time, he's handcuffed. Was Mickey just a super paranoid, mentally disturbed guy, and the judge was just this great guy in town running a great drug program and helping out all these beautiful poor women? Mickey lost his shit and thought y'all was doing all this crazy stuff to him. Question. So then did those officers go to Mullins' chambers? He says they did. Okay, what, based upon the interviews, what did they discover? They discovered Mullins on the floor of his office with numerous gunshot wounds. Was he still wearing his robe at that time? He was. That's a weird question, isn't it? He must have put it on because he just come home from lunch. He had just come back from the restaurant from lunch. So was court getting ready to reconvene for the afternoon? Because he did have on his black robe. Okay, so he had it on. Okay, now you said that was a part of your investigation. You actually recovered some camera footage? He says yes. And where was that camera located again? The question is, well, throughout the courthouse, we recovered footage, but one particular camera is actually inside Mullins' chambers. And according to Taya, that room was not the original judge's chambers. Like, he had a different office. For whatever reason, they were in that office that day. And she doesn't really know, but what she knew to be the judge's chambers wasn't that office. And I don't know if they switched things up, that she just wasn't aware, or what was going on. But that's the office they were in. They're calling it the chambers. Okay, and were you able to, I believe you said were actually able to review the footage from that? He says, yes, I was. The question then is, okay, and did the footage cover, I guess, the entirety of that day? He says, yeah, yes. And then the question, okay, is there any sound? And then the answer is no, there's no sound to it. Just video only, no audio. And the question, okay, can you tell us what you observed on that recording in about 15 minutes or so prior to the shooting? I would like to see the whole day footage. Did the judge and the sheriff have any communications prior to the shooting earlier in the day? Did they come in, have coffee, a smoke, shoot the shit? What was happening all day? Was the judge in session all day at the courthouse until lunch? Okay, tell us what you observed on that recording in about the 15 minutes prior to the shooting. He says, okay, hold on, guys, I need to get a sip of my drink here. Okay. Just by reviewing the footage in the courthouse, he says, I can tell you that Sheriff Steins entered the courthouse at 2:38 p.m. through the front door. At 2:40, he was in the judge's office at this time. There's 4 other people inside the office. He apparently asked those people to leave. And then the question is, and you indicated that there were 4 other people inside the office? And he answers yes. Were those 4 individuals who worked in the courthouse or were involved in the court proceedings? And he says yes, they were. And then the question is, were all 4 of those individuals interviewed? He says yes, they were. Then, okay, what did they say Sheriff Stein said when he walked in? Basically that he asked them to leave, that he needed to talk to the judge. Okay, and so did those 4 people leave? He says yes, they went to the jury room, which is the next room over from the judge's chambers. You can actually see them leaving, watching that video footage, and the answer is yes. And yeah, you can. The video shows them walk out the door, and then they say, okay. Then they ask, then he says, that was at 2:40 when the sheriff entered the judge's chambers. He sits in a chair in front of the judge's desk. At 2:42 and 2:45, the sheriff gets up and checks various doors. He checks the door that leads to the jury room, and at one point, that would be in front of him, which is on camera. He checks a door that is behind him that would lead to where, like, the court designated work for juveniles is in the courthouse. He checks that door. That's going to be the door on the same side of the wall where the camera is at. You can see Mickey walk toward that. Like, I thought it was a wall, but there's apparently a door there. So he was checking that. He walks over and he locks the door that goes to the jury room. That's at 2:51. Okay, and is that about where the video that was played at the prelim hearing picks up? And he says yes. That snippet, that's correct. And that snippet was played. Are we going to play that for the grand jury today? And then he answers yes. All right, just give me one moment. Okay, the clip is about 24 seconds. And he says yes. And this is grand jury exhibit number 1. And there's no verbal response. And is this the same video that was played at the preliminary hearing? And he says yes, it is. And for the grand jury's knowledge, it's going to show the actual shooting? Yes, it will. All right, with the video up here, here's an individual standing with any kind of gray or tan polo shirt. Is that correct? He says that's correct. And through your investigation, were you able to determine who that is? He says yes, that's Mickey Steins. And then the individual seated at the desk wearing the black robe. Yes, that's Letcher County Judge Kevin Mullins. Okay, so this is the beginning of the 24-second clip. Is that correct? He says yes. Okay, and you testified earlier that prior to this part of the clip, you can see Steins lock the doors, and he says yes. Is that the door that he's standing next to with kind of some dry cleaning bag or something hanging on it? And he says yes, it is. And so is this video picking up after unholsters his weapon and the door's locked? And then yes. We're now playing the video. Do you see an individual? Do you see this Sheriff Steins do in that video? What do you see Sheriff Steins do in that video? Then he answers, he initially fires 2 shots. The judge goes down on the floor. The sheriff walks around, reaches over the desk, fires additional shot. Then as he's about to walk out of the room, he reaches under the desk and he fires, which he did. It'd be 6 more shots. Damn, Mickey. I mean, it wasn't just one shot, guys. It was like boom, 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 and one for good measure. Jesus Christ. And so did you actually see Stein shoot from at 3 different physical locations inside the room? And he answers, yes, ma'am. Did Judge Mullins survive the gunshots? He did not. Detective Stamper, throughout your investigation, have you become aware of some speculation in the community involving Mullins and the daughter of Sean Steins? He says, I have. And what is Sean Stein's daughter's name? Lila. And how old is she? 17, I think, or 16. She's in high school. Okay, I'm not sure. And then he says, okay. She's a juvenile, which I don't know why they didn't redact her name, but it's out there. And her videos are out there too. Okay, and she has been interviewed? Yes, she has. Okay, was she specifically asked about the speculation in the community? She was. And what was her response? She denied any allegations of having any contact whatsoever with Judge Mullins. Now, if Mickey was, because that was the speculation, right, that Mickey, the judge, had an inappropriate relationship with the sheriff's daughter, which caused that to happen. But it feels like it was more of Mickey's concern about her being kidnapped. But people didn't know that's what it was about. They just jumped to the conclusions, the judge is getting it on with the daughter. But because Mickey kept stressing about his daughter, right? Well, in Mickey's mind, they're trying to kidnap her, and in everybody else's mind, all the judge is getting it on with her. Whatever. Speculation. Okay, and by contact, what do you mean? By social media, by text, by phone, in person, any kind of contact whatsoever, she denied it. And they got her phone records. Did she deny any sort of relationship? And yes. That was just all a rumor. Okay, and if there was any communication between her and the judge, it would be on their phones. Phone calls to one another, text messages, even deleted ones, photos sent back and forth, whatever. Okay, did you also ask the wife of Steins, and her real name is Caroline, Yes, her name was Caroline. Yes, she was asked the same questions. There were also rumors about her having some kind of relationship with Judge Mullins, and she denied those allegations. Oh, good Lord. So we got the judge getting it on with Mickey's wife and daughter, and that's why he went there and shot the man. Nothing to do with what these women out here are claiming. Was she specifically asked about whether or not she had any knowledge of her daughter Lila and Judge Mullins having any relationship? And he answers yes. And what was her response to that? That was not true, is the answer. Okay, now as part of your investigation, did you become aware of Lila's phone number? He says, I did. And did you also obtain and examine Judge Mullins' cell phone? He says, yes, I did. Did you also obtain and examine Mullins' phone records for that cell phone? And the answer was yes. Based upon your review of those records thus far and the phone thus far, does there appear to be any communication between Mullins' phone and Lila's phone? The answer is none whatsoever. It wouldn't have taken much for them to come out and dispute those rumors early on about a minor child being involved with a freaking dirty old man. Maybe the judge wasn't a dirty old man, but I kind of think he was. My channel, I'll say what I want. I ain't accusing him of nothing. Well, people have, and I'm just backing them up. There was a call between the two of those numbers on September 19th, between Lila's number and Judge Mullins' number on the day of the shooting. The answer, there was. And the question, okay, and based upon your investigation, were you able to determine the source of that call? Yes, Sheriff Steins used Judge Mullins' phone while he was sitting in the chair in front of the judge, in front of Mullins' desk, to call his own daughter. Mickey used the judge's phone to call Lila, and outside the phone call, have you discovered any other calls between Lila's phone and the judge's? And he says no. And are you familiar with Stein's date of birth? November 30th, 1980. Lord, Mickey. Okay, are you familiar with Stein's social security number? Well, they got the whole damn number out there. Okay, whatever. Any questions for Detective Stamper? And then there was no verbal response. Prosecutor, all right, no questions. We'll go off the record. No. We need to stay on the record. Unknown person. She may have a question. Prosecutor, oh, I'm sorry. Female juror says, so you said that you brought the phone records back? He says, yes. Was her number stored in the judge's phone? He says, it was not. And they say, okay. And the male juror says, is there any way to retrieve any of it's been deleted off the phone? And the answer is, there are, yeah. Then a female juror says, what about social media like Snapchat or one of those other types? We got some smart jurors here with the right kinds of questions. He says, yes, there's no evidence. And the question is, that traceable? And the question is, yeah, it's traceable. There's no evidence of any kind of communication with them. Then a male juror asks, with the comment that you made earlier that one of the deputies said they were trying to steal the family, and he answers, yeah. The question, what was the cause of that? And the prosecutor says, and I guess, so in those interviews, Lila and Caroline Steins, and the answer is yes. Did they disclose that there had any concerns of their own personal safety? And the answer was no. They may not have known what all Mickey knew, right? Mickey knew there was threats. If there were threats, was Mickey telling his wife about the threats, right? Because the wife finds out there's threats, she's going to want to know why. Well, the town's getting it on with all the town's women. Was there anything to corroborate any sort of statement that they had been kidnapped based on Caroline and Lila's statements? And the answer is no, actually they did not. And then, okay. Then the female juror says, was there an active warrant, or I guess they had contacted the sheriff, Lila or Caroline, about any sort of EPO or protective order? Were they fearful of Steins? And the answer is no, they were not. And we had heard reports stating the opposite. Male juror says the footage throughout the courthouse as you followed him through the courthouse was his demeanor on the footage there. What was his demeanor on the footage? And the answer is, I don't really know Mickey that well, but I mean, you can see him. He walks straight when he comes into the courthouse. The day he walks through the front door, he walks back past the elevator, goes in, and I guess it's called the jury room. That's how he enters and exits. After the shooting, he exited the same way. I mean, I don't really know how to answer your question. He didn't, didn't seem to be in a hurry. And then the question, well, that's what I was trying to. And then the answer is, okay. Then the question, was he in a hurry? Was he stressed or anything? Then the answer is no, just casually walks in and pretty much casually walks out. So the jurors are looking, to see, was he coming in hot and aggressive, or was he just like strolling through the courthouse? They're trying to figure it out. Is there cameras that show him outside the courthouse? Because honestly, when you found out the sheriff shot the judge, everybody has questions as to why. So I'm sure this jury's wanting to know the same thing. There's something that prompted it. And then so answer. There are. When asked about the cameras that show him outside of the courthouse, there are. It's from a distance, but you can see when Mickey exits the courthouse. Sean Steins is who I'm referring to when I say Mickey. Prosecutor. And he is known in the community as Mickey Steins. He's known as Mickey Steins. I think Sean's his first name. His middle name is Mickey. He walks out the front doors of the courthouse. He walks to the left and starts walking down the street like he was walking to the sheriff's office. No, now where people were right on the top of the courthouse when this happened, by the time he makes it outside, the courthouse there's already law enforcement response to the shooting. And people were piling out of that courthouse on the video. So he walks past these officers that are responding to the shooting. That's when I spoke with one of those myself. They've all been interviewed. But that's when Borman, I think was his last name, said I can't stand when they don't talk right. They see Mickey walking away from the courthouse and they're like, hey, what's up? Where's the shooter at? Hey, what's up? Where's the shooter at? That's what you asked the sheriff? Like so casually? Hey, what's up? Where's the shooter? And he don't say anything. He just keeps walking. But you can also see, and like I said, it's from a distance. At some point, Sheriff Steins turns around and walks back towards the courthouse. He walks back in the front door. You can see another camera on another camera at that point. If you switch from the outside view to the inside view, you can see Mickey come in and surrender to law enforcement. Once again, there's no audio, just video. The female juror says, with interviews, whether it be your own, with the interviews, whether it be you or anyone else that done interviews, were those people that worked with him asked about any type of strange behavior weeks prior, or days prior? The answer is yes. Oh, he didn't say no. Was anything asked of that nature? There was, and common answer to that was Mickey was not acting like himself. At what time frame? And did they give a time frame on how long that he'd been doing, or that had been going on? I think particularly it was like a week and a half or 2 weeks leading up to the shooting. And no one had even stated that the strange behavior was not reported to anybody. Were there any formal requests through legal system to get him sort of assistance or anything like that? He says no. Well, Mr. Dotson was concerned. He even went to the judge and said he was concerned. Yeah, the guy y'all interviewed. I understand that the phone records have been obtained. Were there any increase in communication? I know that it's common for the sheriff and the judge maybe communicate, but were there any increased or strange messages that just didn't add up between the phones, or any communications there? He says, no, not really. Well, let us be the judge of that. He says, I know they had communicated the night before, but that seems to be a work matter that's not related to what happened. I think they communicated on a regular basis. And then he says, right, work-related issues. Can we see those messages, please? Then the male juror says, you stated that you and several others had tried to talk to Mickey that day. He says, we did. Then they say, have any of y'all tried to talk to him since then? And he says, no. And then again, the male juror says, so he's not been interviewed at all since that day? The answer, well, he wasn't interviewed that day because he didn't want to talk, and he had an attorney shortly after. So, female juror says, so even though people said that he had not been acting like himself, did they show any real concern about his behavior, or did they just thought, he's not been himself lately? And the answer is no, his family was concerned. Some ladies that work in the sheriff's office were concerned that he wasn't acting like himself. Did they say specifically what they thought he wasn't himself? And he says there is an active lawsuit against the sheriff's office that was ongoing that seemed to be the nature of the issues that was going on with him based on these people told us. So he's sitting here saying that Mickey's stress level didn't get to where it was until all this civil suit stuff was popping off. Now he's going and giving depositions, and all of a sudden Mickey's stressed. So they're kind of telling the grand jury about it a little bit, but kind of not at the same time. So this is not going to get thrown out. They're not going to dismiss the indictment. It's never going to happen. Male juror, at our previous meeting, I know you requested medical records. Did that open up anything, or is it just? And he says no. Prosecutor says, have you had a chance to just review a snippet of the medical records? And he says, I have. And are those the medical records from Dr. McGoogle's office? It just says they are. And did they change your investigation in any way? No, they did not. Did he document any type of hallucinations or psychosis? He says, I'm sorry, could you repeat that? He didn't understand the words, y'all. Did he document any type of hallucination, psychosis, depression, or mental health issues? No verbal response. So he just shook his head? Nah, I'm a lazy-ass detective. I can't even speak a word. I'll shake my head. And Detective Stamper, I'm handing you medical records returned. What would that be? Would that be them? And he says, it is. Are there comments from Dr. McGoogle there? And he says, here today. Would you like to read the document for the grand juror? He says, yes. It says, patient sees me for the first time today since December 2023. Oh, so he's seen him before, but he hadn't seen him since 2023. He's accompanied by his friends who are concerned about his level of stress and loss of sleep. Again, where's Mickey's wife? Why we got some sheriff's ladies taking Mickey to the damn doctor? If my husband needs to go to the doctor, I'm fixing to leave work and take him myself. There ain't some other lady about to take him. But then again, I don't know their dynamics. The patient was very subdued but denied any depression, anxiety, psychosis, suicidal, or homicidal thoughts. Although he did not weigh in check today, he states he almost lost 40 pounds intentionally over the past several months, and his stress levels related to his work have contributed to his weight loss as well. He denied any problems at home. He stated he had just needed his blood work and some medication refilled. I was happy to see his blood pressure was good that day, or was good today. And these, never mind. I'll ask that question later. And are these medical records for September 18th, 2024? And he says they are. Female juror says, is there a list of medications he's taking? And again, no verbal response, just a head shake, because we can't use our words. Prosecutor, are you personally familiar? Have you reviewed specifically that medications he was taking at the time of the treatment? No, no. Okay, are you available? Are are they available in this medical records if the grand jurors would like to review them? He says yes. Okay. The juror says, I have another question. So you said ongoing lawsuit against the sheriff's office? And the answer is yes. Question, did Judge Mullins have any relation to that case in any way? Well, we don't know yet. Answer, no, not. And the question, that it would matter? Yeah, it might matter. Question, to your knowledge, was Judge Mullins involved? Answer, no. To my knowledge, no. No involvement. Female juror. It's an early investigation. Y'all don't know that. So Dr. McGougal said pretty much there's no mental health issues, but any was there any major physical issues that he was struggling with that may have affected his mental health? Like seriously physical things going on that can affect your mental health, which we all know can do. He says, no, not at the time that I'm aware. Then the male juror says, and you stated that when he came in and talked to the officers that he said they were trying to take my wife and daughter? And the answer again is yes. Did he refer to, and then the question is who they were? Look, we've been asking that question. I personally continue to ask the question, who the hell's they? We're never going to know. They apparently rule the world, and we're going to spend our eternity trying to figure out who the hell they are. That's why I don't watch politics. They. They want us to believe this. Who the hell is they? My God, I need a vacation from life. He wasn't referring as in him as Judge Mullins. It was they as in more than one. Well, I think we all learned in school they means more than one. If we paid attention, I don't know without speculating who he was talking about. Let's not have you speculate, cop. Male juror. And I know that you said you don't know if anybody did. So there's no interview with Mickey Stein stating a motive for why he did what he did. And the question is no. He had an opportunity to talk to us, but he refused to do so. The female juror says, what about the previous luncheon? Was Steins a part of that lunch? He says he was. And the question, did you interview the people who were at the luncheon? And the answer is yes. They've all been interviewed, and none of them, and he's interrupted, there was no conflict? No. There was no argument? No. Huh. Then why did y'all take the phone to the lady who was at the luncheon? Because she was texting somebody some bullshit about what Mickey and the judge were talking about at the lunch. Things were a little heated at the lunch. Then the judge and his little posse walks back to the courthouse without Mickey. Moments later, Mickey's doing the judge in. And y'all took that woman's phone because she had some text communication. So come again? Male juror, do you have a timeline of his activity between the lunch and the time of the incident? He says, yes. I know he done a food delivery with somebody after lunch, and before he was with Michael Watts, I think is his name. They had to take some food to someone in the community, and Mr. Watts has been interviewed, and he didn't notice anything peculiar. Question. So he was in a sane mind, and as far as the investigation has gone, and then he says yes. That is very contradictory, right? From what we've been reading so far in this one little document. Prosecutor, any other questions? No verbal response. Prosecutor, and so Detective Stamper, are you here today seeking an indictment on one count of murder, specifically that on or about the 19th day of September 2024 in Letcher County, Kentucky, the above named defendant, being Sean Steins, committed the offense of murder when he unlawfully shot the Letcher County judge, causing his death? He says yes. Any other questions? And again, no verbal response. The prosecutor says, all right. And that was the end of the grand jury testimony. Transcribed from audio, grand jury, whatever. So the grand jury had good questions, but were they presented all the evidence? And if they had known more about Mickey's mental health status, I don't know that they would have not turned back an indictment. You still would have had to charge him at some point and let it go from there, let it play out in court, right? Um, I'll have a hard time thinking that a judge is going to allow that to get thrown out on that based on what I just read. Hang on, let me check something here, guys. Come back here. Okay. Hey, Spinster, welcome in. Miss Woozy, welcome in. Good to see you. Sunflower, always nice to have you in. Thank you guys for coming in today and hanging out. So Joy, Kel, you guys. Dolphin, hey, how are you this morning? Guys, I'm laughing at myself right now. Sorry. That let me pull. So let me get this one other thing I wanted to review today. I don't know if I can see it well enough because I need to get the actual document away from where I got it. Let's see. Because I wanted to go over this latest document from the prosecutor, but I don't have the. Hang on, let me find it here. Oh, I know where it is. Okay. All right, there we go. Now I hit the wrong. I typed in the wrong thing. I was like, "Why is it not working?" Because your user error, lady. Um. Oh, I don't want to look at that. I don't want to look at that. Oh, Jesus Christ, they're going to force me to look at that dude, that shooter's picture all day. I'm staying off Twitter. I'm trying to pull something up. I don't even want. I don't want to look at any of it because I'm going to get a bunch of propaganda from two sides. I'm so sick of it. Continue to target my 18-year-old boy. Y'all keep it up. It's been going on for years. Okay. And for anybody, well, that's a whole other story. Um, in the Delphi investigation, one of the FBI agents that was working the case was ambushed and killed outside of his FBI office in Terre Haute, Indiana. Shane Meehan was arrested and charged with that. He was a former corrections officer. Go figure, another corrections officer in Indiana, and that's tied to that Delphi case um, because of the person he killed. And so he's going to be going to court soon. So I'm going to have to put a show together to get those documents together for us because my buddy's got all those latest documents. And I'm just trying to find the document right now on the Steins case. And I know is here that I didn't. I thought I had saved. Here it goes. Okay. Let me see if I can read it. I may pull it up on my phone and read it while you guys are seeing it. Okay. So it's a 5-page document where the Commonwealth's response to defendants' opposition to mental health evaluations. So what I got to do is get the state's initial filing, right? Because they wanted him to go through more psychological evaluations. And then the defense has come back with a response in opposition to that request. Okay, so get up here. And guys, I can't make it any bigger. I needed to download it a different way so I could make it bigger for us because I'm telling you, I'm having a hard time seeing it. Comes the Commonwealth by through an undersigned Assistant Attorney General and Commonwealth's Attorney for the 27th Judicial Court in response to the defendant's response in opposition to the Commonwealth's request for mental health evaluations. I can't read it, guys, sorry. On the 27th of February 2025, while the hang on, I got to pull that up on my phone because I'm not going to be able to read that shit. That is a too little. Like, I think I'm going blind. Here we go. I got it right here. I wonder why the defense would oppose if they've already sent him to their own evaluations. Both sides usually can get to do that. We saw that in the Cooper case. So I don't know if I'll have to read it to find out. Okay, here we go. All right. Comes the Commonwealth by and through all that. Okay, on February 27, 2025, with the filing of the defendant's notice pursuant to RCR, the defendant advised the Commonwealth and his court of his intention to raise a defense of insanity at the time of the crime and to present expert evidence relating to a mental disease or defect on mental condition bearing on this issue of guilt and punishment. While the filing with a notice pursuant to RCR code, the Commonwealth was provided with 10 days to file a motion for the defense to be examined, or for the defendant, to be examined. In response, the defendant's notice pursuant to RC code, in accordance with the code, the Commonwealth filed a motion for reevaluation in the Kentucky Correctional Psychiatric Center on March 10 of 2025. The court ordered the evaluation. The defendant's expert was permitted to participate in the evaluation, which has now been completed. Remember when Koberger was going to go for his testing and Taylor was going to be present as well. While the defendant asserts that RRC code provides the Commonwealth a single mental health evaluation, so the Commonwealth gets one evaluation, did they never do one? It's that restriction stated explicitly otherwise. The defendant, maybe they already had one, they want another? In advising the Commonwealth and the court of his intention to raise a defense of insanity at the time of the crime and to present expert evidence relating to a mental disease or defect. Hold on, let me. Mental disease or defect or mental condition bearing on the issue of guilt and punishment initially initiated this inquiry. The defendant raised the issue and cannot now bar the Commonwealth from conducting its own independent evaluation. Had they not conducted one yet at all? Why would they not, right? Especially if the guy's claiming this. I mean, this has been going on for a while now. Y'all have known he's claiming this defense. The defendant's reliance on Benjamin versus Commonwealth is misplaced. In Benjamin, both competency and criminal responsibility evaluations were completed for Benjamin at a state facility. Benjamin requested state funding to hire additional expert, and that the request was denied by the state. Wait a second. The defense doesn't want the state hospital to evaluate him because they don't trust the state. Benjamin requested state funding to hire an additional expert and that the request was denied by the trial court. The Supreme Court of Kentucky, when reviewing for abuse of discretion, ultimately found there was no due process violation resulting from the trial court's denial of Benjamin's request for funding to hire an additional expert. The court is conducting a balancing test relied on the fact that the evaluation had been completed at a state facility, and Benjamin, other than on the first day of trial, failed to state with specificity that the need for an additional expert. The Supreme Court ultimately concluded that due process does not require funding for a second mental health eval under KRS chapter. Here, in contrast to Benjamin, no request has been submitted to this court for funds. However, the Commonwealth's request for additional evaluation was made far in advance of trial. Consequently, Benjamin is markedly different and provides no authority binding persuasion. Don't you know they're both going to have an expert come in and weigh in on if this whole defense is going to weigh on Mickey's health or mental health status, both sides are going to get to present an argument on that and a expert on that. Hmm. Word salads. Of any examination conducted under the rules. Okay. Um, has introduced evidence of incompetency or incapacity to stand trial, has introduced evidence requiring notice, has introduced evidence requiring I'm trying to get to where it's going with the relevant bullshit here. By asserting the defense of mental illness or insanity and claiming he lacks criminal responsibility for shooting and killing the Letcher County judge, the defendant himself initiated inquiry into his mental health. Well, yeah, he kind of did. The Commonwealth has a right to rebuke this defense and recognize the Supreme Court of Kentucky. Commonwealth is entitled to obtain a private expert to conduct an independent evaluation. And I agree, because we had that in Koberger. Both sides got to put him before their people. There's no reason why the Commonwealth can't put him in front of somebody and the defense put him in front of somebody. Obviously, Mickey wasn't right in the head, some capacity. There's no excuse for what the man did. I get your emotional disturbance. I understand the being concerned about his wife and daughter and all of the things and all the accusations against the judge, but I would have loved for the judge to stand trial and face his accusers, if that's the case, right? But Mickey took it upon himself to walk in there and take justice into his own hands as an armed law enforcement officer. And we can't have cops going willy-nilly around the world just shooting people because they feel like it today. We can't have that either. I'm not going to be that person. It's not, what you did wasn't right. Now, I get there may be a trigger or reasons or legit concerns as to why you did it, and I'm willing to hear them out before I make a decision on what we should do with you, sir. But something's going to have to be done because you took a life, you know? I hate that it had to end that way. I wish Mickey would have walked back into that civil suit and told them everything he knows, whatever that might have been. Or was he afraid that if I go in there and tell them, nothing will still be done? Right? That's also, I have to consider that as well. Did he feel like he was backed into a wall? Even if I go in there and tell because according to some of the documents, Mickey had inquired to the KSP about doing some investigation, and they were like, no. So did he feel comfortable if he went in there and told them whatever it was he knew or didn't know? I don't know what to think about it yet. But I know what he did wasn't right under any circumstances. No more than it was right to go off and kill this man for political purposes or to walk into a school and shoot up some innocent kids. Because I'm pissed in the moment don't give me the right to take a life. It just doesn't. Y'all, I'm hungry now. I've talked too much and I'm hungry. What are y'all doing in chat? Are y'all like, man, Salty's on it today, we're just going to ignore her? Like, y'all all leave me? Y'all might have said, oh, we're going to come back another day. I'd understand. I was just going to go check my chat on my phone because it doesn't show up right, and I see Vinnie Politan sent another interview with Colby. Lordy, lordy. Okay, let me... Y'all hear your son called Butterfly? Someone, it's not my son calling, it's her son calling. You got to answer the calls to the children's. You don't never know when they're going to need something, right? You never know. So we're going to have to I'm going to have to get some more of those documents from the Steins case, and we're going to follow along. Now, I'm going to do probably Monday. It depends on what all pops off over the weekend as far as cases we're following. But Monday, I am planning to do another follow-up show on Letcher County, and the we're going to review Judge Mullen's drug program, and we're going to take a deeper look at Little Preacher Man and the ARC program that was run there, and the allegations leveled against him, right, and the documents I found pertaining to what he had going on. So we're going to probably do that on Monday morning. If we get any more interesting documents, in the Koberger case, we'll take a look at that. But I don't know if they'll get anything in over the weekend or even by today at the end of the day. As far as any new unsealed documents, it's not the deadline yet. So all they had so far was the prosecutor or defense wanting to seal their document, and that was granted, and that was it. Let me look at my notes, see if there was anything else. And that's really it today, guys. We went over the Koberger thing and the Commonwealth's response to the evaluation. I told you guys about Daybell's little website with all his little weird letters. I'm going to read them because I'm trying to get my mind into Chad Daybell's mind. We've seen enough of Lori. I know what that woman's about. I don't need no one to point out and tell me what Lori Vallow's about, because I know. But I need to know a little bit more about what Chad's about, just from my own brain. Not for nothing more. Sick son of a bitch. Weirdo. And from what he wrote in that letter, I will say this. I did listen to one read last night, and it sounded like to me he was setting it up to make Tammy look incredibly sick. Because that was already out there. Tammy was sick. Tammy was fragile. Tammy was, getting all her health was deteriorating. I bet it was, sir. What was you giving her? See, when I read Chad Daybell's letter, my mind goes there, not, oh my God, this sick son of a bitch, I'm not even going to entertain him. Nope. I'm fixing to figure it out. I can't help myself. Inquiring minds want to know, right? I'm not going to dismiss those letters because it's Chad Daybell's goofy ass. I think that guy is extremely morbid and weird. And people are so focused on how Lori duped Chad. Poor Chad. That's what I feel like saying sometimes in chats to people. Are we over here poor Chadding it up today? All Lori, wasn't it? It was all Lori all along. Mm-mm. All of her friends said she was fine. Yes, she never told her sisters or anybody about her health issues and struggles. Only Chad knew about them. Was he lying and making it all up, right? Setting it up to something was really wrong. And Tammy was into the herbals and all that. She didn't like going to the doctor, which I've always known that about Tammy. Um, there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes you have to incorporate Western medicine with your natural remedies. You just have to on occasion. But she was very much into her own healing, right? Bore Chad. He is so boring, Woozy. I don't know. Every time you go into a chat where they're discussing Lori Daybell and all the atrocities those two committed, you hear more about Lori Vallow. And the anger toward Lori Vallow. And it's well placed, don't get me wrong. But I think people have really missed something with those two because it's uncomfortable to talk about, and it's not for me. I've been talking about it for years. And I walk away confused sometimes. Do I blame the LDS, or are we saying, no, it's not their fault, but then the next week it is their fault? Next week I just walk away confused. Some people can go believe what they want. Mr. Mumbles, he can't even talk right. He's a weirdo. I'm a weirdo. It's okay. He can stay over there and listen to the vent people with Brian Koberger. But he's over there in death row, so I don't know if they get to hear the vent people screaming at him. Chad probably just ignored the vent people. Y'all can't get me. I'm in lockdown 23 hours a day. I'm safe. Can't get me. And y'all don't get all big mad about Stearns getting moved to a little minimum security prison, because that just means he's not as safe as they think he is. So in my mind, I'm like, let it roll. Let the chips fall where they may. I don't think Stearns is getting special treatment at all. And I do not think state of Florida made a deal. You confess and we'll send you to a cush prison. Oh, hell no. We don't have cushy prisons in state of Florida. Do your research. Ask Todd Grizzly. Do we have cushy prisons here, sir? Even our federal prison? How was that? How did our federal prison treat you, Mr. Grizzly? Pensacola, Florida. How did it treat you? Pretty damn bad, according to him. So prison in Florida ain't a cakewalk. So it doesn't matter where they send Stearns. Stearns is not safe. Just keep that in mind. Yeah. Now I wonder if Chad's got like worship set up in the prison. Can we find that out? Are people going to Chad and worshiping with Chad? Is he carrying on his little godlike ventures up in the jail, saving the souls of all those lost souls? I want to inquire about that. How can we find out? Can we call the prison and like, look, are y'all allowing Chad Daybell to run any of the religious things y'all got going there? That 1 hour a day he gets out, is he a preacher man? I don't know. I don't know. I gotta go out and touch grass, guys. I need to breathe the air. And if I don't breathe the air, sometimes I feel like the air is being sucked out of me. And if I sit in the house too long, it tends to happen. So I'm going to take my tail to the yard and sit outside for a little bit. We got some kind of cold front coming, I heard. And Florida's going to have some amazing weather over the next couple of days. I'm like, am I going to be cold? Do I need a jacket? I may not agree with some of what Florida be doing these days. Well, but I do love their fuck around and find out policy for people who, yes, ma'am. I got a love-hate relationship with the government of Florida. It is what it is. Some things I like and some things I don't. And I have to pay attention to that because it's my state, you know what I mean? But there's some pretty big things happening here right now, even down to our little concealed carry law. But then everybody around here carries any fucking way. We are in the deep south, below the Mason-Dixon line, down here on the Redneck Riviera. You damn right they're packing. Jesus. It finally cooled down for you guys. I'm okay with a little bit of a cool down, but not like I don't want to be cold, woozy, and I'm scared I'm gonna get cold. Like, y'all know I'm a true Florida girl. I like it warm, but I'll take a couple of days of nice weather. If I can sit outside all weekend, I'll take it. I don't like sitting out there when it's so hot I can't be out there more than 5 minutes because I really enjoy sitting outside for like 2 or 3 hours at a time. It is not unlike me. If y'all ever wonder where I'm at and y'all don't see me nowhere around, y'all can know Sally's sitting outside. I am sitting outside at my table. It could be 3 a.m. in the morning. That's what I'm going to be doing. I love to be outside. I have to. Y'all need to get out and touch some grass this weekend. Y'all go do it. Get outside 30 minutes. Go to the park. Go to the beach. Go to the lake. Whatever you do. Whatever you got around you, go do it. You know what I mean? It doesn't take much to get out and get a little fresh air and some relaxation. And I'm going to take my own advice and go do that now. Yeah. Them hoodies bother me. I'm a petite person, right? So the hoodies are always swallowing me, even a small one, and those gigantic hoods that go, I don't want none on my head to start with. So I have a couple of jackets that I do have this one hoodie that I love though. So I probably need to get it out, don't I? In case I need it. I might need it in the evenings. Yes. Yes, sunflower. Preach it, ma'am. Yes. Enjoy the nice weather. It heals the soul. It definitely does. Throw some tunes on in the background. Put the phone down. Listen to the birds. Watch the trees. Feel the breeze. Be in tune with nature. With that said, guys, y'all go have a great weekend and do something kind for yourself, right? And for others. And if you need to take a step back from all this craziness of true crime and the madness of the world, do so. And be full of gratitude for what you have, right? That's what we don't need to walk away from all this with. That's what I do. I I try to walk away with gratitude for what I do have, especially seeing some of this horrible shit we see all the time. Yes, thanks for coming in, everybody. We appreciate each and every one of you. We really, really do. And my mod team, thank you guys for always coming in and hanging out. Everybody that watches, that just watches and you don't really chat, we appreciate all of you guys too, because we are getting the numbers and we do appreciate the watches. They help a lot. And of course, I love my chatters. It's coffee and crime conversations. What the hell, right? We like to conversate over here. So thank you all for coming in and being a part of the conversation. Y'all really make it worth it, right? All right, guys. I will see you back here on Monday. You may see me around the streets over the weekend. Y'all know some of y'all do. Where's Pammy? I always run into Pammy somewhere on these streets. Forrest, I'll run into him. I've run into a few of y'all in different chats. Y'all will see me around. Y'all know who you are. All right, guys. Y'all go have a good one, and I'll see you back here on Monday.
Thank you all for watching this here video.